I mean, people look at the Wizards' record, and the first thing people say, "Oh, must be a tough season. Must be a tough season." It's been a great season. I've been around young guys that their eyes are so bright, and they're sponges. They want to learn. Yeah, they had a 15 game or a 14 game or 16. God knows what the losing streak was, but see, it doesn't matter. Isn't that the lesson for life? Aren't we supposed to seize every day? Well, these guys do. So that makes it fun. It doesn't make it feel like, God, I can't wait to get to the end of the season. No, with this Wizards team right now, you're saying, look, I can't wait to see what's next for all these young guys. And now from the Wizards' perspective, you throw in a Chris Middleton and a Marcus Smart to the equation. How does that impact these guys?
What is your first or favorite basketball memory?
Well, look, it's a beautiful game. It's about finding, space on the floor. My memory growing up with actually the Bullets at the time, and then they became the Wizards. They won a title in 1978, but it's just the beauty of the game. It's a game. Yes, it's about dunks and it's about fancy plays, but it's also just about the spacing on the floor and the flow. And it's a game that I fell in love with as a youngster, and it continues to be my passion to this day.
So we've had other commentators, public address announcers, a lot of people associated with the game of basketball internationally and in America. So we always like to delve into the origin stories of like how you ended up in your position today. So can you kind of go into your journey into broadcasting and now end up being the voice of the Washington Wizards?
Well, look, I always wanted to be a play-by-play broadcaster, and that's what I am. But I was a country music disc jockey. I was a hit parade disc jockey. I was a newscaster. We could go right down the list. But, my big break was doing Navy basketball in the late 80s after David Robinson was there at Navy. But again, it's a love of basketball at all levels. And I appreciated so much that time at Navy and in the early 90s. I started filling in for the great Charlie Slows, who's now doing the Washington Nationals on the Washington Bullets, and I've been so blessed to be with the Washington Wizards since 1997, and it truly is a blessing. As I say, we can X and O's and go low over the map, but it's about the 2.5 hours that NBA basketball provides is a cocoon of happiness, if you will. It's a cocoon of joy. Yes, you hope to win, but you're not always going to win. But was it exciting? Was it fun? Was it 2 hours, 2.5 hours where you weren't thinking about, oh my goodness, my health challenges, or oh my goodness, my bill challenges. You were just thinking about the game. And that's the beauty of sports. And still to me is the beauty of any kind of live play-by-play event.
Dave, you mentioned just knowing that you wanted to do play-by-play. Did you have inspiration, like figures that you drew inspiration from that inspired you towards that route, or when did you kind of know that?
Well, it's interesting. I have a disease called multiple sclerosis, and my mom was in a wheelchair, and she had the same disease, multiple sclerosis. So I used to put on play-by-play radio shows for her. But certainly I was influenced by Jim Carvelis, who was a tremendous Bullets broadcaster, a tremendous versatile broadcaster. He broadcast soccer. He was broadcast the New York Knicks. He broadcast the New York Cosmos in their heyday with Pele and Canalia. He was an anchor on television, all roles that I've had the blessing of having. And I look to him as certainly an inspiration.
Do you have any thoughts on, or I guess maybe a better way to ask, what would you say is the toughest element of broadcasting, like being successful in your broadcast?
Well, I don't look at anything as a toughest element. It's such a blessing to connect with fans. It's not only the broadcast, the 2.5 hours that you're on the air. It's who you meet, who you connect with, because especially radio. It's such a personal medium. Maybe you're listening in the car, maybe you're in your AirPods or earpods or whatever we're calling them now. That's about as personal as it gets. So, as I look at it is certainly fortified and give me such gratification on my broadcast journey. And I always say this, and I say this in every broadcast, it's about the connections, it's about the community. So I don't think there's a tough part of it at all. It's a true blessing. We live in a world that it always seems to be divided over something. This, and not to get too Pollyanna or too preachy, but again, getting back to, this is one thing we can share a passion about, whether it's Wizards basketball, whether it's Trailblazers basketball, our next opponent, or whoever. That is a shared passion, and it goes across political lines, it goes across color lines, whatever lines you want to talk about. It brings people together, and that is the power of sports.
Dave, you touch on maybe a bit of what you might answer for this upcoming question, but we've seen the way people consume sports change so much over time. I mean, some people consume sports. You could argue whether they're true fans or not, but even just scrolling through Twitter, as an example, what do you think sets radio apart and keeps radio going to this day as a medium for sports consumption?
Well, I'm talking on your phone because I couldn't figure out how to connect with you on my laptop computer. So the point is, we have the Wizards. We have a 24/7 radio station that you can listen to the games. You can get features. As I'm talking to you on a phone right now, that's the new transistor radio. Nobody's doing one thing anymore. Everyone's busy. Everyone's out and about. Everyone's got to go somewhere. You can't just, and that's for sociologists to look at. But the bottom line is nobody seems to be doing just one thing anymore. So where the audio description and voice fits in is right in with 2025. We're multitasking, as we always talk about on our radio broadcast. We're in a multitasking situation. You can connect with us while you're doing other things. Maybe you're waiting, for your son or daughter's practice to get done, or God knows what you're doing. Maybe you're doing your taxes right now, as it's February. So yes, we obviously I like to look at video of everything. But there's still a place for the audio description.
I want to transition, Dave, into the Washington Wizards as just a team and an organization. You have so much experience, and we always like to get the temperature of different fan bases around the NBA and WNBA. So, can you just talk about the relationship that the fans have to the Washington Wizards? Do you think it's unique compared to other fan bases, or can you just kind of go over this relationship that the fans have with the team over the years?
Well, I think it's look, this is and I think it should be celebrated. It's not every NBA city has been able to celebrate an NBA title. So Washington is one of those special cities. Look it up. There's so many cities that have had great teams. Have they ever celebrated an NBA title? No. Yes, as Chicago, has New York, has San Antonio, Golden State, whatever, LA. But is Salt Lake City, or you can go right down the list. So it's not easy to win an NBA title. Having said that, I actually just saw a stat the other day, and of course you can you see all kinds of stats all the time, but there's a certain number of I guess it was fan engagement versus victory, and the Wizards are right up there in terms of obviously this is not a season with a lot of victories, but the fan engagement has been high. This is Washington D.C., the nation's capital, is a basketball city. It's produced some great basketball stars. I mean, Dave Bing, Elgin Baylor, to name a couple. But I'm obviously I'm doing this off the top of my head, so I'm forgetting some great names of basketball. This is a basketball city. It's a city that won a title in 1978. That it still celebrates that title, but that is very much in the rearview mirror. The goal is to get to a situation where we bring another title to the nation's capital, because this truly is a basketball city.
Can you discuss what steps that the Wizards organization need to do in order to, be in line for a championship in the future years? Right now, basically, they're right at the bottom, so there's a lot of work to do. But what kind of things do you think they need to check off their checklist in order to, reach that pinnacle? You think?
Well, it's about player selection, and look, this is the San Antonio Spurs. I think about the my first year broadcasting the league. David Robinson was hurt, so they didn't do very well. All of a sudden, they draft Tim Duncan, and then you have Tim Duncan and David Robinson. So it's not an exact science. Having said that, I think with the Wizards story of 24-25, when you look at the number of young players that are producing, getting a number of minutes and succeeding, that's encouraging for the future. And that's the way it works in the NBA versus, other sports. The bottom line is you pretty much have to start over. You have to get high draft picks of high quality. It's not as simple as starting over. It's not like, all right, let's bare bone it, let's lose, and we'll be successful. No, that's not the way it works. In other words, you're taking a risk that you're saying, you know what, we're going to start over, but we have to draft the right people. We have to put them in a position to develop. So then, in 2-3 years, like an Oklahoma City Thunder, and quite frankly, we're following that same model with Will Dawkins as our general manager, had success in Oklahoma City. That's what it takes, and that's also the nature of the sport, basketball, and the nature of our salary cap situation. It's not a situation like the NFL where we're like, oh, you don't like this team, you can blow the whole thing up, because you don't have guaranteed contracts in the NFL. You can almost start over because the only thing guaranteed is the bonuses they're given certain players. So it's a different dynamic in the NBA. So it is incumbent to develop and to find the right players. Now that's critical. Again, it's not as simple as saying, we're gonna be a losing record team. This, you don't go into a season saying let's be as bad as we possibly can. You go in situationally saying, we've got some young players and we're going to play them and we're going to develop. But, we've seen it with the Washington Wizards, last night. And as we speak to you right now, we're coming off a win over the Brooklyn Nets. Yeah, critical to that win was Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart, two players that were acquired, right at the trade deadline. Um, that's what this league is all about. It's fine margins. So you actually win games, those close games, because you have players like but like Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart. But you want the Bub Carringtons, the Bilal Koulibalis, the Keshawn Georges, the Alex Stars to learn from that experience, because the keys belong to them. And in a couple of years, the goal for the Wizards, anyway, is for those players to deliver not only the prominent roles they're delivering now, but also delivering victories as well.
Yeah, that's such an interesting point, because you look at a team like the Rockets as well. I mean, they had that young core, when James Harden left the team, and they went into a rebuild mode, and then they really didn't start to pick up success, at least at a faster rate, until they signed Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks. Do you think that the Wizards are committed to sort of this patient sort of rebuild? And do you see Middleton and Smart as kind of those veteran leaders to help accelerate that learning process for the youth that's there?
Well, those two players you mentioned, certainly for the next part of this season. Now, beyond that's not what it's about. But again, that's the delicate dance where you You have a situation where you select players that are not only going to help your team, in this case the Washington Wizards, but also help them. Quite frankly, it's a it's a relationship that has to work both ways. Um, uh, Look, Kyle Kuzma and Jonas Valanciunas helped the Wizards to this point, and there was a moving on period. There's a point where the Wizards are going to go from a team where they know what their core is, and now they're established. They're not there yet, but it's critical of okay, as you're developing this culture that you're trying to create a sustainable winning culture. It cannot be chaotic. It has to be. You have to be careful in the players you select. So, Jonas Valanciunas, a Malcolm Brogdon, obviously Chris Middleton, a Marcus Smart. These are players that add so much to the culture of this team. How long they're here, I don't know, and I have an answer for. But the important point to note is that they make a difference because they're true professionals, and their approach to the game. And look, we've seen it. When Malcolm Brogdon's been on the floor with the Wizards, or certainly in recent games with Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart. So, that's the other part of when you're going through the quote unquote rebuilding situation. It's just not as simple as, okay, we're going to give away everything and start over. Okay, you're going to start over, but there's games in between. It's an 82 game schedule. It's a long season. Um, who do you have to develop that winning culture? You're trying to develop a way. Every franchise in the NBA wants to achieve the ultimate success, and it's not easy. It's not easy.
Can you talk about when you're commentating on games and you mentioned you're in the midst of a rebuild? How is that philosophy conveying that to the fan base, just in terms of keeping that excitement level? Can you talk about that just in terms of your relationship with the fans and them realizing that, the Wizards are probably not going to make the playoffs, but still keeping that excitement through, the rest of the season?
Well, they're not going to make the playoffs, but when we drafted Bilal Coulibaly, which had everybody reaching for Google on their phones, which we're talking to or maybe listening to right now. Um, I had fans at our draft party that night coming up smiling, saying, okay, this is a signal that we're in it for um, the long term development. Again, long term is relative in the NBA. So I've been doing this almost 30 years now, and I've been around teams which have won more games, but have not been as enjoyable to be around because this is a collection of young players. They can't wait to get on the court every night. Every night. I don't care if it's Monday night in Brooklyn, Sunday in Orlando, Wednesday against Portland, whatever. They're in the NBA, for goodness sakes. This is their dream. They're living, for goodness sakes. They're playing against players they played on video games, and now they're guarding them in real life. So there's an authentic joy that goes with that. So, last night or the most recent game against Brooklyn Nets, as we discussed, that was a victory, but there are only 10 wins, as we discussed on the season for the Wizards. So often we don't pull out the win, but often the Wizards are in the game. Often you have situations like Giannis being blocked by Keshawn George, a rookie, and fouling out. And the Wizards, they lose a 3-point game. But did they fight? The fans get it. The fans get it. This is not about are we going to get the 10th or ninth or 8th? And this is, just a reality of the NBA. And that's where the Wizards, reached the situation. We could compete between 4 and 8. We had some elite players, John Wall and Bradley Beal. There's so much involved in success in the NBA, and health is certainly a big factor. unfortunately for the Wizards, could not keep John Wall and Bradley Beal healthy and on the court at the same time. And that limited their ability to proceed from what was a mark in 2017 where the Wizards are almost the Eastern Conference Finals, and you think, all right, we're almost building something here. But the Wizards are not alone in that situation where they're almost. But then this player gets hurt or something happens. It's just not an easy league to break through to the next level. So the Wizards are trying to break through that next level by going down, frankly, to the bottom level and starting over and seeing where they can take this journey. And again, that's, as I said, that's no guarantee. Look with Detroit, and they're having success now, but it's not been easy for them. Look at the Chicago Bulls post Michael Jordan as they tried um, to rebuild. It's a tough league. It's a tough league to win in. Look, there's billions of people on the planet. We have 500 of the best basketball players in the world. That tells you all you need to know right there.
Well said. And I love, in a lot of these takes, you're really keeping the big picture in mind and the reality of all of this. Are there things that you hear maybe from outsiders who are not as close to the Wizards organization that maybe are like most common things that are misunderstood about the Wizards or the franchise in general?
Well, yes, no, absolutely. That's a good question. I mean, people look at the Wizards' record, and the first thing people say, "Oh, must be a tough season. Must be a tough season." It's been a great season. I've been around young guys that their eyes are so bright, and they're the sponges. They want to learn. Um, yeah, they had a 15 game or a 14 game or 16. God knows what the losing streak was, but see, it doesn't matter. Isn't that the lesson for life? Aren't we supposed to seize every day? Well, these guys do. So that makes it fun. It doesn't make it feel like, oh God, I can't wait to get to the end of the season. No, with this Wizards team right now, you're saying, look, I can't wait to see what's next for all these young guys. And now you from the Wizards' perspective, you throw in a Chris Middleton and a Marcus Smart to the equation. How does that impact these guys? So that's the misunderstanding. And again, unless you're an ardent fan who is a season ticket holder, goes to games or listens, if you're looking from the outside, you see the record and you think it must be, wow, what a tough season they're having. No, no, no. I can tell you about tough seasons when there were more victories. The victory here is in seizing every day.
Can you discuss this season when it concludes? It seems like the Wizards are the favorite to pick up Cooper Flag. Just your thoughts on Cooper Flag as just a player and how he fits with the Wizard. I know obviously if there is a draft lottery, anything can happen, but assuming that it goes the Wizards' way, is there any excitement in terms of the prospects of gaining Cooper Flag to your franchise?
Well, I think anytime you're in this situation when you play the pinball or the ping pong or whatever the odds are, there's excitement and I'll be frank. I mean, if I'm busy doing the Wizards, obviously I'm not busy scouting Duke basketball, so I can't break down all of Cooper Flag's. But I hear and see what everybody else sees. Um, I just think that it's a situation where if it's Cooper Flag, whoever it is, um, you want to have the right culture, and culture is an overused cliche, but it is people from the outside might say, well, how are the Wizards approaching day to day? We're approaching it on a broadcast standpoint, on a organizational standpoint, like we're a title contending team. In other words, you don't just uh, mail it in and all of a sudden, wow, okay, now we're ready to go. Um, and so you hope you continue to draft the right players. And I'm not evading the question. I'm just saying that it is a draft lottery, and there's a reason for that. And make no mistake, the Wizards, not tanking this season. You don't get to be to the next level by saying, all right, let's get a collection of guys to learn how to lose well. You have to learn how to win in the NBA. But you do get to the next level by saying, you know what, Bilal Coulibaly, congratulations. You're in your first year, your second year of the NBA, and you're going to get the toughest defensive assignment every night, every night. And they're going to come at you every night. These players are going to get minutes, and it makes a difference. So I think whoever the Wizards end up drafting, they're going to draft in a position where Michael Winger, Will Dawkins, who came from Oklahoma City, you have the structure in place to be ready to succeed as fast as you can succeed. Because when you're talking about a rebuilding process, it's there's a timeline on that. There's always a past due date with every sport and every team. So it's not like you're dealing with unlimited time. And quite frankly, the Wizards aren't dealing with unlimited time. We can say, well, everyone's so young, but you know what? They're going to go from young to experienced in a hurry. And that's the NBA. When we're talking about developing, we're talking 2-3 years. We're not talking a 10-year plan here.
Absolutely. Dave, I'm dying to pick your brain. We all know that Michael Jordan played for the Chicago Bulls, but I personally feel, just my opinion, people don't talk enough about Michael Jordan's tenure with the Wizards. And you, as someone with great knowledge of that franchise's history, can you give me any thoughts that you have about Michael Jordan's tenure and maybe why it's not talked about more? Because I think there are a lot of positives from that time that maybe don't get touched on.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe it's not talked about more because very close. Um, Certainly to making the playoffs, but didn't. And so maybe that's why it's not talked about more. But, I think about his first season as we reached the All Star break. I think we were 26-21, and the team had gone through some tough times, and it really had the talent talking again. So that was significant. Michael Jordan forever for me will be the most competitive person I've ever witnessed firsthand in my life, but he won 6 titles, and he played the number of games he played, and he didn't miss. Didn't take shortcuts, and again, that's what is always preached with the Wizards today is not taking. There's no shortcut to success, and certainly Michael Jordan, was not about shortcuts. He was, as great as he was, and highlight and the flash, and beyond all that was a work ethic that just was beyond belief. And so I was so blessed for a couple of years that to call his games. And unfortunately, it was at a later stage of his career. But boy, did he battle through whatever he had to battle through because he truly loved the game. So, I think it certainly was um, a period of time that energized the team, energized the city. And then not long after that, the Wizards went on a playoff run with a different selection of players. But um, I think his impact is understated. I think it is because he didn't achieve the goals he wanted to achieve here, but it was not for lack of trying.
Is there a standout memory from calling any of his games that stand out to you as it's reflecting over his time with the Wizards, you think?
Yeah. No, I think it was Madison Square Garden, the shoot around. It's not far after 9/11, and he reaches out and grabs my hand and says, "Nice to touch you, my friend." So the fact that I didn't want to wash that hand for several weeks. So I know he made great plays, but I'll never forget that moment.
Dave, thank you very much for spending some time with us. Truly appreciate it. Can you let our audience know where they can find you on social media, where they can check out just the Wizards on any platform just to check out the games or more about the team as well? And anything else you want our audience to be aware of as well?
Well, if you go on the Wizards app, the radio, just click the radio icon. We're connected with you 24/7. We always have Wizards features for you. At Dave J Sports, if you want to reach out to me, and we always are interactive with the broadcast because, again, it's about connection with the fans.
Awesome, Dave. Thank you very much.
Thank you.